Welcome to the Targeted SEO Podcast, where we're just talking about SEO, and we work day in, day out on SEO for a range of different businesses, from finance to renewable energy, healthcare and medical. And today I've got Harry with me, and we're going to be unpicking some really good topics.
Hope so.
Yeah, so Harry, do you want to just give a very quick introduction to our audience?
So I'm the SEO strategist at Targeted SEO, one of two. I spend most of my time really helping our clients to understand their goals and objectives and where they maybe want to take their website along with their business, and how those numbers can really apply and what they maybe need to be doing on their website to help them get there.
You're always looking at data, trying to understand the numbers behind, the why, trying to unpick things like, why has this happened? And then trying to make an informed decision about a strategy, to maybe improve things, or
definitely,
to reverse engineer it sometimes.
Yeah, it can often be the case. It can be quite easy to come across certain challenges on websites and not really understand why they're happening. And although we can maybe take actions to mitigate them or find a quick solution, we really want to understand what's the long-term effects of this, and ensuring those things are really wrapped up. So having the numbers, having the evidence there can really help.
Yeah, fantastic. So today we're going to be talking about domains.
Yes.
Because quite often, a business might rebrand, they might choose a new domain, and there's a lot of problems that surround that. And a cheap domain that might cost you £7 or something from a domain registrar could then end up being a really costly, expensive mistake for a business.
Yes, it can often be the case. And it's easy trap to fall into. I guess we're probably guilty of it. It's quite easy to find a domain we really like the look of.
I've got so many domains in my Namecheap account.
Yeah, and I think many people in digital marketing have that urge, seeing something flashy and want to jump into it. So I think we all understand it. And I think for business owners, it can also be the case. A renewal coming up, and it gives you a few alternatives, a few options, and you see them there, and they might be, like you say, $7 a year or something on offer crazy, or they're usually around the case of $30 a year in the most entry level cases, and it can be quite quick to think, maybe that could work for us going forward, and taking the leap without maybe the consideration of what else is it going to impact, or who else is it going to impact when you start to build on it or make the switch to it.
So why do companies tend to, get a new domain, consider moving domains? Why does this come up? Is it because they see a .com and they think, maybe I should get the .com and change from a .co.uk? Or, quite often we'll get asked by our clients, I've been offered this domain, someone's selling it to me and it's got my name in it, or it's got my trading name in it. Should I buy it? And then, it's being sold to them for $1,000 or something,
Yeah.
And that's,
I mean, we're certainly not saying, don't switch domains. There's plenty of legit reasons of why you may want to switch domains or find a new domain. It could be the case that your business is going through a rebrand and you need something that's better positioned for you. It could be that you're looking to address certain PR matters, that a switch starts to make sense. You kind of mentioned the switching from .co.uk to .com.
Yep.
You're starting to move international. It makes sense to kind of remove that limitation from the website. So there's plenty of different reasons of why a domain migration or why a domain switch really makes sense. The issue becomes that when those reasons are actually just personal interests or a bit of a business vanity project,
shiny object,
a different shiny object, then it can start to lead to these ongoing issues, or issues that you haven't even really considered yet down the line.
Yeah, totally. And we've actually had a number of clients rebrand over the years. We've been an agency, and we had a commercial loan company that actually offered residential loans as well.
Yeah. And
we found that the name of the domain was actually putting people off from the residential side. So we had to rebrand, get the new domain, and then do a whole migration, didn't we? And that was done in a very controlled way. So it is possible to rebrand.
Yeah, it's probably one of these instances where the business is realizing a potential pivot, not just a new product and not just a new service that warrants this new domain migration, but an actual perception of the business that kind of needs to be reconsidered. One example that a migration was warranted.
Yeah, totally. And we can handle that, can't we? We can look at using software like Google Search Console, using those types of tools to actually tell Google that we're changing the domain. So should we just talk through that process and what it might look like for a business if they're considering a rebrand?
Yeah. So you really want to start to understand. Well, firstly, what is your domain, and what are the different...
where is it?
Where is your domain? Who has the password to get into that GoDaddy account or whatnot? You really want to understand that sort of environment first, because of what you'll find for most established businesses is your domain actually controls a lot more than you realise or may have forgotten about over the years.
Yeah.
And when you start looking underneath it, you start to understand that it's where your DNS records live, and these are kind of controlling things like your emails, your platforms, and how efficiently they're being delivered directly to your inbox. It may be the case that you're using third-party systems and softwares that send out your contracts or key documents to clients branded with your domain. There's a chance that there's probably a DNS record that's controlling that.
Yeah.
You make that switch and you forget that
You've lost
record.
all of that.
Suddenly your contract software has gone down, or your third-party automation has gone down because it was running off of the records that fell under that domain.
Yeah, it's quite often we get asked to change DNS records, and we're like, yeah, we're an SEO agency. We know how to do DNS records and MX records and all of that, but quite often it does fall back on us to manage that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you mentioned what that process looks like, and for us as an SEO agency is quite often making sure that they're aware of some of these common pitfalls, so that they can go in, in some cases speak to their IT team to make sure these things are checked and considered before these switches happen, and to ensure that the necessary pathways that need to be taken are considered, so that it can run as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, excellent. So a company's rebranded. They've got a new domain. So we've got 2 domains running now. What's the first step? What are we looking at? So do we need to make a copy of the website? What's the process here?
Yeah, there's we would hope that there's many copies of the website, many backups being taken as often as possible.
Daily backups.
Daily backups, is incredibly important. In case anything goes wrong, we can always jump back. But yeah, there's going to be instances where we want to be able to map between what it is, or what will become old, and what it wants to be going forward. There's usually a few other different things happening around this time. If you're considering a domain migration, it could be that you're looking to redevelop the front end of the website in the very near future. So we want to start to begin to map and understand what new URLs are going to look like, not just the core domain, the first part of what you might see within the browser bar, for those who maybe aren't aware, but the full URL being then the page path, everything that we see after the domain within that top bar on the web page. There could be a chance that if you're looking to redo the website in the future, these might be changed, and so we want to ensure that these are all mapped out efficiently with efficient redirects in place. A really common issue that we see is someone moving from an old website, including the domain, moving to something new, and just putting in a blanket redirect, pushing everything to the brand new homepage. And what we then see is years worth of SEO or other campaigns.
All that history is just lost.
All this history lost in a click of a button, where everything's now pointing back, all those rankings that you had.
Didn't Toys R Us do that? Like quite a while ago now, where they had a big website and they just messed up all their redirects.
Yeah, it's I think some of these big websites, they're often pulled up on it pretty quick. I think curious SEOs like ourselves are always keen to see how they're doing these migrations and where they've maybe missed out. And it's a really important point, because of people are watching, your competitors are watching, and a simple miss like that is something that they can capitalize on. Suddenly these rankings that you had for these certain web pages that are now just pushing through to your homepage aren't as helpful for the search engines anymore.
Yeah.
and all your competitor has to do is just meet that intent, become the most helpful, to quickly replace your position within search results.
So let's just talk about redirects quickly for the audience that might not know. What is a redirect?
To put simply, it's an instruction. We're telling search engines that, or wider systems, if you like, that this web page either is being moved permanently, or it could be moved temporarily before we maybe make a switch back. But it's just a case that this was an old version and we're now looking to move to a new one. These can throw up a bunch of different response codes that you may or may not be accustomed to, whether that's a 301 redirect or a 302 redirect. Ideally in the future we'd move towards what's called 200, where everything's there and everything's working as expected. But a 301 redirect is quite often the ones that we're going to be dealing with, right, where we're moving permanently the old URL or the old domain to the new one.
Right. So if you're a user and you're going through search engine like Google, you're being redirected to the new URL, the new page. You're not just getting to a 404 error or a dead end.
That's it, because we often see that these updates in Google take time. So although your domain migration or your domain switch has happened in a day or within a 48-hour period, perhaps, it takes some time for Google to start to recognize those changes. So people are still going to be going to those search pages and clicking on results. We want to ensure that when they're clicking on those results, they're being taken to the brand new web page and not fed to the old URL that Google is still recognizing at that time.
So if you've changed your domain, you've got a .com now from a .co.uk, do you still have to keep the .co.uk live, or do you have to, can you get rid of it? How long do you have to keep it live for?
There's different ways in which that migration might happen that might lay out different timeframes. You typically want to ensure and test that everything is switched over from a DNS propagation standpoint within 48 to 72 hours. But there may be cases where you want to keep an instance live, depending on your hosting package, on your server to just kind of monitor those results over time. When we start to introduce Search Console into the matter, Search Console is going to want a little bit more time to start to recognize the changes that have occurred and what needs to move across from an old account to a new one. And so you might feel reassured by keeping that domain live and having a bit of crossover time, a month or so minimum, perhaps, to ensure that those changes are recognized.
So if you've got an older website, you've done this, you've gone through this process, things like backlinks, obviously they're all pointing to your old website. Is there a way that you can harness that authority still? Can you still pass on that trust and that kind of EEAT that we talk about a lot?
Yeah, it really comes back to mapping out the website and what the new one is likely to be, and really ensuring that those aren't forgotten about. Although the methods that we're using are the same in terms of finding the source URLs and repointing to the new destination URLs, it can be the case that in these migration processes, your web developer or the website owner perhaps says, we no longer need this archive anymore, or don't worry about those blogs, we'll do those later. But it's actually some of those pages that have the backlinks and have the authority or have the rankings in some cases. And by the time they come back to worrying about them later, they've now been sat broken for 6 months, and they've dropped out, and they no longer have the authority that they maybe once had. So we want to be ensure that we're covering all bases before this migration happens.
Excellent. So things like domain authority can be passed on to a new domain, even if you're starting from scratch, but you're redirecting from an older website. By forwarding these domains onwards, we can still, we're not losing what we once had, but it's by working through this process and setting these rules in place per page, per item, is what ensures that all of this is really transferred. And as you say, it could be a case where big corporations maybe do a quick switch that pushes everything to the homepage, and then it's a sure way to lose everything that's come beforehand. So is there a time when you shouldn't switch domains, do you think?
Yes. I think there are cases. I think you really need to ask, why are we doing this? And if you can't really think of an answer that goes beyond I really like how this sounds, or I really like this word, with no future or no further consideration for how that really plays a part in your brand, it probably isn't the right time. You probably want to sit down with your brand team to understand what the wider picture is there.
And it shouldn't just be because you like the keyword, or
no. I don't think that's a valid reason. We see that keywords in domains is probably something that many people desired for, and perhaps is something that still works for certain types of businesses. But it's not the be all or end all. We really don't need to jump into this new domain just because we feel like our product's now in the domain and it's going to change everything for us. It's probably not a valid reason to migrate, particularly if you've invested for many years in that one domain.
Say you do have a keyword in your domain. I don't think it's that important these days. It used to be an older, 10 years ago, if you had the keyword domain, then that was great. But these days it's not so important. But one thing I am interested in, if you get external backlinks, so say you've got a keyword in the domain and you're getting backlinks to your website, does that influence things? Because say, for example, our agency website is Targeted SEO. We're getting backlinks which mention SEO just because of our domain name. Do you think that's an influence? Do you think it matters?
I think it's a good reflection of the brand, and I think as we move towards understanding how generative results are starting to appear and perform, and how these systems are kind of making up links between different online entities, it can only be a good thing, right? As we start to understand, SEO or targeted SEO as a brand, as a brand name, it could also probably be a product for many as well. And as AI starts to understand that, maybe there is cases where we're picking up newer citations, perhaps because of we're very lucky to have SEO directly within our domain. So it could be a positive. Fantastic name. And so it could be the case that it is play and benefit.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of detail here on domains and, the pitfalls and the issues that can come up when businesses do consider domains. So thank you, Harry, for your insights today. And thank you for joining us. And if you've got any questions regarding, domain changes, please feel free to leave a comment and like and subscribe to our channel for more great SEO insights.